Hey everyone, today I'm just doing a short follow-up video to the video I did last week on my Type 03 FFL. I got that in the door and I'm really excited about it. Not excited, I don't know if you can get excited about getting anything from the ATF, but it's going to allow me to actually buy Type 3 Curio and Relic firearms online without having to go through a background check. And they sent me my actual license in the mail last week. And I thought it was kind of weird that I didn't receive like a packet of any other information like guidelines or like best practices or any other forms to go along with that. Well, today I actually did receive those items and just kind of wanted to walk through those as I got them. And again, the whole point of me doing this is just sort of like an informational thing, right? This is my first time going through that FFL process and kind of just wanted to share that experience with you. So I got a packet in the mail and it came with 6 or 7 different items. The first one is an open letter to all federally licensed collectors of Curio and Relics firearms. And I'm just going to read through this like fairly quickly just because it is sort of like long form. But it just says the purpose of this letter is to apprise federally licensed collectors of pertinent regulations of Gun Control Act of 1968. A licensed collector is a collector of Curio and Relics only and is licensed and regulated under the provision of 27 CFR Part 178 to be considered a Curio and Relic. To be considered a curio or relic. A firearm must 1. Be manufactured at least 50 years ago, or 2. Be certified as a curio and relic museum interest by a curator of a municipal, state, or federal museum that exhibits firearms. And then the third one is to derive a substantial amount of its monetary value from the fact that it's novel, rare, bizarre, or associated with some historical event, period, or figure. I went over that last week, and so that's a bit repetitive. But it does have a list, a little bit more of a concise list of what is prohibited, authorized, and required, and then it has a few reminders, and then this letter is just signed by John P. Malone, who's Assistant Director of Firearms, Explosives, and Arson, which I guess is maybe like the subdivision of the ATF. Not entirely sure how that's structured. Anyway, so Curio and Relics firearm, what is prohibited under this license? You cannot engage in the business of buying and selling Curio and Relics. So again, it's not saying you can't buy those things. It's saying you cannot engage in the business of selling firearms, right? You have to have a Type 1 FFL for that. So this is purely for collecting firearms. The term engage in the business refers to a person or entity that devotes time, attention, and labor to dealing in firearms as a regular course of trade or business with the principal objective of livelihood and profit through repetitive purchase and resale of firearms. Collector's license only enables a collector to obtain Curio and Relic firearms interstate. Cannot acquire firearms other than Curio and Relics using a collector's license. Licensed collectors have no special privilege with regard to firearms that are not Curio and Relics. So I can't go into a gun shop and say like, oh, I want to buy a Remington 870 shotgun. That's just straight out of the box. They're going to say like that doesn't fall under a Curio and Relic, even though like if I bought like a modern like reproduction of a Mauser, right? Or if I bought a modern Mauser or any sort of bolt-action rifle that was made sooner than 50 years old, that would not be a Curio and Relics, even if mechanically it's pretty much the same as they were 100 years ago. What is authorized? They may acquire and dispose of Curio and Relics at any location. I guess. Okay, acquire and dispose of. Okay, not dispose as in destroy, dispose as in like sell or give off to somebody else. May dispose of Curio and Relics to a licensee or non-licensee residing in the same state who is not otherwise prohibited by the Gun Control Act and any other federal firearms license in any state. So that means you still can't, you still can't sell Curio and Relic firearms to someone who is prohibited by law from owning firearms, which makes sense. For requirement, they must prepare an acquisition and deposition record as so it's just a bill of sale pretty much. Must enter the acquisition and disposition record all Curio and Relics acquired after the receipt of the collector's license, right? So that means you have to keep a log of everything that you acquire and dispose of with your Curio and Relics license. You must provide a written notification as specified in ATF, yada yada. Youth handgun safety notice when delivery of a handgun is made to a non-licensee. And then, of course, you must report a theft or loss of a firearm within 48 hours of discovery by telephoning, yada, yada, yada. And I think why they state this several times is because in some states, you're not required by state law to notify if a firearm, or notify the state if the firearm has been, if one of your firearms has been stolen or misplaced within 48 hours. Some states you have to let the government know, like the state government know right away. Sometimes it's within 12 hours. I think Virginia here you have to notify the state government within, or the police department within 24 hours if a firearm has been stolen. Some states I don't even think have any restrictions on that, but in regards to firearms that you have on your Curio and Relics firearm, the ATF is saying because it is a federal issue that you have to notify them within 48 hours of a firearm being lost or stolen. So anyway, took a little bit longer than I wanted to go through that. They just give you also a little form here, which is just a reference guide of all the places that you can acquire a reference guide for. Actually, well, let me just get to it. So the main part of this packet is the Firearms Curio and Relics list. This is sort of the most up-to-date. It says revised as of December 2007. So this is an entire list of all the firearms that you can acquire with your Curio and Relics license. So going to page 23, for example, a Harrington and Richardson trapdoor Springfield carbine, 45-70 caliber, 100th anniversary Little Bighorn commemorative, manufactured between 1973 and 1981. That is a firearm that is on the Curio and Relics list, and you can purchase these with your Curio and Relics firearm. And then, of course, they also have a list of firearms that have been taken off. But anyway, this is your physical guide of which specific firearms. For the most part, if a gun is 50 years or older and is legal in your state, I don't think you necessarily need to reference this. Some people do it because, just to double check. You can get, obviously, if the gun is not on this list, you can get in trouble. So yeah, anyway, this is handy, but this guide here is basically just saying these are other ways that you can reference this Curio and Relics firearms list. You can get it through a PDF. You can find their 2014 reference guide on their website. You can access it with an iPhone or Android, or access it with your Kindle. Imagine imagine pulling that up on your Kindle. I don't even know how many people even use Kindles these days, but anyway, yeah. If I'm walking into a gun shop or buying something online, and I'm like, I want to see if this gun actually falls within the Curio and Relics firearms list, I can just pull it up on my phone. I'm not going to carry this around, but this is still a nice guide that comes with that packet. The other thing it comes with too is this little fold over piece of paper, personal firearms record. So the front is just to keep this list separate from firearms to assist police in the event of your firearms being lost or stolen. This is your personal firearms record list, and this is kind of a small one. I know you can buy actual thick ones if you know that you're going to be buying a ton of Curio and Relic firearms, but this is just sort of like a complimentary little starter thing, right? Remember, when you acquire or dispose of Curio and Relic firearms, you have to keep a record of all of those. And so this has 10 entries on it that comes with your packet. You have to keep you have to record the manufacturer, the model, serial number, type, caliber, gauge, date acquired, cost, purchase locations, name and address specifically, sold or transferred to is another column, name, address, and date. So again, you can just buy it if you're going to be transferring and purchasing a lot of firearms under your Curio and Relics license. You can get the big, thick, stacked Curio and Relics bound book for $16 on Amazon. But this is just a little complimentary one they threw in this packet. And on the back, it just said lost, stolen firearms investigations. Each year, thousands of firearms are reported lost or stolen. The owner's ability and to adequately identify these firearms is central to law enforcement's ability to investigate these crimes and losses. Insurance claims and reacquisition of recovered firearms will also hinge on the ability to correctly identify these firearms. By completing this record and maintaining it in a safe location separate from your firearms, you will not only be protecting your own property, you'll be taking an important first step in the effort to prevent theft and to keep firearms out of the hands of criminals. This is a personal record only. The information will not be collected or maintained by the ATF or any other federal agency. So, anyway, and then there are finally two other items that come with this packet. The first one is a federal firearms license, firearms inventory, firearms in transit, theft or loss report. So, yeah, I didn't expect this a lot, but they, like the ATF, I guess they're just doing like a large amount of due diligence. They've referenced lost or stolen items in like every piece of paperwork they've sent. So they're very serious about if you lose your firearm, you got to report it right away. And so they just have all this information you're supposed to fill out, and then a nice little list on the back in case you need to, unless they have this giant list on here just in case you lose up to 10 firearms at one time. So anyway, again, this is just a liability thing. They've got to send you all these forms. And then the last piece of form they sent you is an application for an amended federal firearms license. So this is if you move locations, change your address, change your name for some reason. They just included this in here and you would mail it back if there was a change. So anyway, guys, they sent this about a week after I actually received my Curio and Relics license. It's just a small 8.5 by 11 piece of paper, and they have like a little slip underneath that you can cut out. That's just like wallet size that you can put in there. I'm going to cut mine out and laminate it, and then laminate my actual federal firearms license just in case, and then also make a scanned copy. If you lose that, I don't want to go through the process of going back to the ATF and getting a new one. But anyway, guys, that is the entire process of getting your Curio and Relics firearm. I did order actual like a bound packet where I can record more firearms than what's on that little tiny dinky like piece of paper. And again, they say that you should have that separate from your, it has to be, I believe, in the same like house of where your Curio and Relic firearms are stored, but they want it to be in a different location in the event that your firearms get stolen. You can still access which firearms you had under that license, so police can help recover those if that's even a thing. But anyway, guys, thanks for watching, and this is just kind of a short update on getting my Curio and Relics firearms license and what sort of is involved in, well, what is involved in that entire process and what your license actually comes with and what the ATF sends you as additional collateral. But anyway, I'll leave it there, and thanks for watching, guys.